for Pittsburgh Sportsline. Have a great week in sports this week. I'm here with Chip Hayner, Smoking Jim Frazier, and Al Levine, the Talking Machine. We're going to start out with Al. Al, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind is Sid Crosby's coming back on Thursday. And I'm not going to gloat too much, but these guys made me make a few predictions at the end of the year, and that was one of my top predictions, that Sid, after searching everywhere, all over the country to find the right doctor, whether it's a chiropractic, nerve guy, spinal guy, everything else, he would get it straightened out, and he would try and work hard enough, and now he's going to play. And he said he realizes that the other players have been doing a great job, so he's not for them breaking up the other lines, and it looks like he's going to be on ice with Cook and Kennedy. So, we'll see what happens there. And then on the power play, it's looking like he'll be out there with Sullivan, since Letang's still having a hangover with his symptoms like concussion, or concussion-like symptoms there. So we'll see what happens with him. But they're not going to change with Kunitz, Malkin, and Neal on that front line on the power play. So I'm really optimistic. They already have 9 in a row. Now you're going to get one of the best players back in hockey. It should be quite exciting there. And it was nice to see the Lemieux statue and the unveiling there the other day. So that's what's on my mind, fellas.
All right, Al. Jim, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks, Magic Mike. Take you again in the locker room with the scout.
All right.
I want to talk,
Scott.
as promised, I want to talk about Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor is the greatest athlete in southwestern Pennsylvania history. And when he was at Jeanette High School, he won a state football championship. He won a state basketball championship. And as a sophomore, he gave a verbal commitment to play basketball at the University of Pittsburgh. And this would have been a senior year, and they probably would have been a Final Four team with Terrell Pryor, even with that team that Pitt had. But where I want to take you with Terrell Pryor was the WPIL championship game at Duquesne University in 2008. They were playing a team from Beaver Falls who was undefeated and ranked number 1 in the state. The first play of the game, after the tip-off, Terrell Pryor went down the court, and Pitt starting linebacker Todd Thomas blocked his pass all the way to his shot all the way to half court, and that just set off Terrell Pryor for the game. He scored 39 points. He pulled down 26 rebounds. He had 12 block shots and about 7 or 8 dunks. And late in the game, as you could see, you can't see this on TV, but this is actually me right here and Terrell Pryor on the table. I'll pass it around. About a minute to go in the game, he sees me. He jumps up on the media table, and he kind of puts his foot on my notes, so I grab his leg so he don't fall off. Or on the Beaver Falls side, you can see Armin Gilliam, the greatest, NBA, one of the great NBA players. He's sitting up there too. And Terrell Pryor's on the Beaver Falls side. He throws a couple cuss words to the Beaver Falls fans and jumps back over. And what an incredible moment. The Beaver Falls fans went crazy. But that's my story about Terrell Pryor, the number 1 football player in the country, parade All-American, the only parade football and basketball All-American since Scott Clemens did it when he played years ago at Canavan, and he's now the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. So, and next in 2 weeks, I'm gonna talk about the NFL draft a little bit, my experience there, and next week I got a real special in the locker room with the scout.
Nice. Have we completed that DNA testing to see just how closely you and Terrell Pryor are related yet? I'd say that is a great shot of Armin Gilliam, though. That's a great shot of Armin Gilliam. All right, Chip, what's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind tonight, Mike, is once again the professional sports leagues, specifically Major League Baseball and the NFL, have completely mismanaged their drug testing programs. The Major League Baseball ended up with a black eye over the Ryan Braun incident, and the NFL has got two black eyes over something that just recently happened. Two of the players for the Denver Broncos were suspended for the first 6 games. And the reason they were suspended was not because their urine samples tested positive. It was because the urine samples, the tester said, could not have come from a human being. Now, this, as funny as this is, this just goes to show you how ridiculous the people that administer these drug programs, and we've got all these high-powered attorneys that are making all these rules to administer these programs. The person that was responsible for collecting the urine was dismissed for dereliction of duty. Okay, they said there were so many violations with everything that he did with the sample that the samples were tainted. The collector actually watched DJ Williams pee into the bottle. Okay, watched him do it, and this urine sample somehow ended up not coming from a human being. So the collector was fired for dereliction of duty, and so Roger Goodell says, okay, he's fired, but I'm going to accept these drug test results because they didn't come. So he suspends the guys without any positive test. So now they've sued the NFL, okay, because both of these guys are free agents, and free agency starts tomorrow. And who is going to want to offer money to either one of these two players, knowing that they've got a 6-game suspension coming up? So they're suing the NFL for defamation and among other things. And and it just goes to show you that they're trying to clean up the sports with these performance-enhancing drugs, but they need to do something intelligently. I mean, can't anybody get it correct? I mean, you collect a sample, you send it to the lab, you get it tested, it's tested positive or negative. Why are people taking urine samples home? That, to me, doesn't make any kind of sense.
They're part-time workers,
Well,
we
they're
found out,
part-time
Chip.
workers. I mean, it just baffles my mind that they could screw this up so bad. And it's not just that Major League Baseball, it's the NFL. But that's what's on my mind.
That's a good one.
Well, maybe they should have testing facilities right there in the stadium. They should probably be able to do that right there with all the other technology they have. Why not do it right there the day of the test?
Just get Ryan Braun's attorney.
They can't
This
get
would be
anything
over.
right. They can't get anything right. And so why even have a testing system if it's just going to fail consistently? It's a joke.
That's not a bad question. Why do you think that they bother? Do you think that they do the drug testing because they don't want the players to do drugs? Do you think they do the drug testing to kind of satisfy the fan base? Because for years and years, I mean, drug testing is kind of like concussions. For years and years, nobody really cared what they did, and then all of a sudden, there started being lawsuits or questions about people that hit too many home runs because they were on some kind of drugs or whatever, and it became a thing to save face in front of the fan base.
And just to add to that, you've got this thing where they did the bounties for hits. Okay. Now, this is really kind of strange because they said they were going to act on this immediately. Nothing's happened yet. And we've got the presumption of innocence here in the United States, but there is no innocence to be presumed here because the coach, Greg Williams, admitted that he did it. Sean Payton admitted that he knew about it. The players admitted they took the money, so everybody's admitted guilt here. But when's the punishment coming? I don't know.
Well, I guess
I'm on a roll.
They're all great points.
I guess it's another thing that who really cares? You go out, you put a good hit on somebody, you knock them out of the game, you make extra $50,000. I think the only people, like we talked about last week, the only people who really should care about that is the IRS. These guys making a couple extra thousands of dollars, they should be paying taxes on that too, right? Well, I'll tell you what's on my mind this week. I just finished a book called The Civil War. Wow. It was written by John Feinstein, and it is about the series of football games between Army and Navy. And while I read the book, before I read the book, I just heard it was a good read. As I read the book, things started to change for me. I will never, ever look at that game the same way again, and I will never, ever miss that game again if at all possible. I will watch it on television every time it's played. If you like football, I really suggest you pick this one up. It's called The Civil War. Again, it's by John Feinstein. It's an amazing book, and it goes into depth about the difference between the military academy programs and other schools. Other schools, the students' hardest part of their day is football practice. At the Navy and Army Academy, the easiest part of their day is football practice.
Wow.
They start their day at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they can't wait to get to practice late that evening. Again, if you like football, I strongly suggest you pick this book up. It'll be a great read, and it will change your view of those games. And, well, that's what I've got for what's on my mind. Chip, let's start with you. Let's talk a little bit about the Pirates.
Well, the Pirates have started slow out of the gate in spring training. They're 3-7 right now, and the early part of spring training, you do a lot of things like you're bringing a lot of young kids up from single A and double A, and giving them a chance to practice and play with the major leaguers. One of the double A players from last year who'll be going to, I believe, Indianapolis this summer, that's really kind of made a name for himself is Starling Marte. He has been hitting the cover off the ball so far this spring, and he's another bright spot for the Pirates. They probably say he's about 2 years away, and he's going to present an interesting situation, with outfield, provided that the three people that they've got playing outfield this year blossom like they expect them to. Joel Hanrahan is preparing himself for the season, and in his first two outings, he faced 6 batters. He struck out 4. They put him into games early in spring training because they want him to pitch against major league talent instead of pitching against guys that are never going to see the major leagues. And he looks like he's fired up and ready to go for this year. He got a significant raise over last year. Last year he had 40 saves, and I think we could look for that and better out of him this year. And any team that's going to get anywhere in major leagues has got to have a closer. And I think Hanrahan's stepped into that role quite nicely, and I think he's going to be with us for a while.
Well, I also think that Starling Marte has been looking very good. Unfortunately, his 2 years away. And like we've talked about before with Pedro Alvarez, you got to hope that the Pirates coaches and that the coaches in the minor leagues there in Indianapolis leave him alone and let him continue to bat the way he bats. You don't want to tinker with this guy's stance. You don't want to tinker with his mechanics. He's hitting very well right now. Let him play. Let him show what he can do, and let him show you why you drafted him. As far as the major league team, well, I think this is going to be another season similar to last season. I mean, there's no real improvements with the exception of the 2 pitchers that they picked up, Denard and the guy that got hurt there. Burnett. Yeah, we won't see him probably for 4 weeks at least.
Until May, they said possibly.
So that's not going to make a lot of changes. I think that once again the Pirates is going to have a season with more ups and downs than my girlfriend's shirt at Mardi Gras. I think that it's going to be a long season for Pirate fans. But we get on. You want to enjoy the game. It's a great stadium, and you see a lot of other teams coming in that are pretty good. You get to see some decent players. I'm willing to give that a chance and take a shot and hope that they improve a little bit. I can't imagine that they're going to break that losing streak this year.
Well, I'm pulling for them to do that, and I know all of us are. I know, a lot of people, jag about them, and it's because we care so much. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of guys on that team that just simply have to do a lot better at doing their jobs than they have. They played well enough to get into the majors. Now they've got to show that they can play well enough to stay in the majors.
No, there's no doubt. I listened to the game the other day with Bedard pitching, and he had 3 good innings. So that gives me a little optimism. If he stays healthy, you need some of these pitchers to come up. But again, it's the offense, like Mike and everybody's been saying. They haven't really changed that much. So to me, Hanrahan, what did he have? 40 saves? What did they have? 73 wins? That's a high percentage for a guy to save all those games. So I'm still holding steady here. I hope they win, but Looks like I'll be a winner again at the end of the season, Chip.
It'll be interesting to watch that play out.
We'll battle it out, my friend.
Well, in addition to the Pirates, again, this is a big sports week. Locally, the biggest thing is probably Sidney Crosby coming back to the Penguins, and I'm sure we will talk a little bit more about that. But nationally, the big deal, of course, is the NCAA basketball tournament. Everybody's filling out their brackets. Everybody's making their predictions on what they think is going to happen, and everybody's wondering what happened to Pitt, who not only didn't get into the NCAA tournament, they were not invited to the NIT, and somebody invited them to a tournament where they had to pay their way in, and they did that. So they'll be playing somebody, but
CBI, it's called.
Al, you've been talking about your bracket all morning or all day. What's up with your bracket?
Well, this is the first time I ever joined that bracketology club that you guys have been in. So the first time I filled one out, went to Yahoo Sports, did my own thing. I put it under Pittsburgh Sportsline. And, of course, I picked Kentucky, like I've said. And I have Michigan State, Syracuse, and Georgetown as my Final Four. I can get all the other picks, but you can see that online, I guess, once it goes live. But it was a lot of fun doing it, and it's real simple how the setup is. And I heard you guys talking about ESPN. Maybe I'll have to fill out a bracket on ESPN now so I can have two of them. So, what are your thoughts about the teams? Any disagreements?
Who's ESPN? What are they? They're like another
Espin.
Sports talk show? Is that
No,
what they
Espin.
are?
Joe
I've never heard of
Espin. That's Joe Espin. He does a lot of sports stuff.
Well, Jim, what do you think this year?
Well, I agree with the talking machine that I'm a big Kentucky fan. I think they'll do it, but don't be surprised if the Big Ten teams do fairly well. I think the Big Ten was the best conference in all of college basketball this year. Very physical. I think that you look for Ohio State, Michigan State, Indiana. Those guys are going to do some damage. I don't see Syracuse or Georgetown from the Big East advancing all the way to the big dance as far as the Final Four. But I look for the surprise conference to be the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten's going to do very, very well. So if you got a lot of Big Tens in your brackets, I think that you guys will be very successful come end of the road.
I got to agree with Jim. I think the Big Ten is going to be real strong this year, but there's some other teams that I think are going to make some noise in the tournament this year. Louisville seems to have gotten hot at the right time, winning the Big East. The Baylor is actually a very strong team going in, and then Missouri is starting to come to light too. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Of course, on my poll, I took Kentucky to win it all, and I think that loss that they had to Vanderbilt was their wake-up call. And the ironic thing that I saw with the four number one seeds is 3 of the 4 top seeds in the tournament this year lost their conference tournaments. And, that kind of just goes to show you this one-and-done tournament, it's very good, because all you have to do is miss one shot, have one bad game, and, you're sitting there watching everybody else. So I'm really looking forward to the kickoff of the tournament, which actually starts tonight with the 4 play-in games. The best is yet to come.
And I didn't fill out a bracket for the NCAAs. I filled out my bracket for the CBI. And I tell you what, I got Evansville making it to the championship game, but Yahoo Sports made me pay to submit my bracket.
At the beginning of the year, actually first show here, I picked Kentucky to win it all. They've done nothing to change my mind about that. No other team has done anything to change my mind about that. Teams that I think will make some noise that you might not expect. Or again, I've talked about Creighton in New Mexico. Creighton starts out against Alabama. I think that they'll beat Alabama and move on from there. I like New Mexico. Even I believe they're playing your favorite Long Beach State in the first round. But I like New Mexico to maybe get a couple of rounds in, make a little bit of noise also. The Big Ten, I mean, I agree they'll make a lot of noise. I'm not so sure that that's surprising. They've got a number 1 seed and what 3 number 2 seeds in the tournament. So I know you went out on a limb there, but
he's a gambler. He does gamble. Smoking Jim gambling again.
But I think that it should be a pretty good tournament. I believe that it's matched up so that if they both advance far enough, that Baylor will play Missouri at one point. In their particular division, Duke is number 2 and Kentucky's number 1. That might not be a bad game if it gets to that point. I think there's a lot of really good potential matchups. A lot of games that I would like to see, so probably watch a little bit more basketball this year than usual. Unless the Penguins are on.
Another team to keep an eye on is Florida State. Florida State beat North Carolina in the ACC championship, and that's something to be said there. But speaking about the tournament, 10 years ago, the first round of the NCAA tournament was played here at the Mellon Arena, and one of the things that I thought was interesting about that is that this is one of the biggest sporting events around, and there were empty seats in the arena for those games, and here we've got the first round of the NCAA tournament with potentially a team that could be playing for the national championship. Syracuse will be playing here in Pittsburgh at the Console. The first round of the NCAA tournament, and it just doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal.
It's sold out, Chip.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm
Here's
really
why.
glad to hear
You
that.
don't hear the buzz.
Anybody that has tickets, one of my best friends went to K-State. He's asking for some tickets, so maybe we'll have to do some filming, Mike, and we'll get him in as one of our prop guys, and maybe Devin here or somebody else will go down and see K-State with my good friend Dave.
But my point being is that
You're right.
It is not a big. It should be a big deal, and Pittsburgh should turn out for it because this is a chance to show the world what you've got to offer, and I mean we've got more to offer than the Steelers and the Penguins and occasionally the Pirates, but that's just one of the things that I just find ironic. I mean, professional basketball never did anything in this town, and just Pittsburgh it always comes off to me as not being much of a basketball town.
Occupy Pittsburgh will be there.
Well, I'll tell you the two major school basketball teams didn't make it. Robert Morris and Duquesne didn't make it into the tournament this year. So there's not as much
There's a drop-off.
interest as there would be had they gotten in. And the other school they didn't make it either. So
Pitt.
Pitt, there you go. Last year,
On the
when
straight.
they were number 1 seed or whatever, that would have been pretty good to have them playing here in the in the Console Energy Center, but they didn't make it quite that far this year. Jim blames it on the coaching, but
We'll see if they win that CBI, and that'll change your whole attitude. And then there's a news flash. Ben Howland is going to be back for next year at UCLA.
Wow.
In spite of all these bad rumors and all these comments, your man's coming back for another year, they said.
was there any doubt about that?
Yeah, there actually was.
Nah, they're not going to get rid of him.
So are you going to be saving the same spot that you would be saving for the Penguins Stanley Cup Championship Parade for the CBI Championship Parade going through downtown Pittsburgh?
Will Evansburg come this far with their parade? That'll be a long parade for them.
I tell you, the parade that they should have for basketball is when Gateway High School wins the state championship. They just beat Seneca Valley by 20 points in the PIAA quarterfinals. So, and they play Wednesday night against Shaler.
We're at there.
Yeah. So look for your Gateway Gators, who has a 6'10" center that the University of Pittsburgh should be recruiting. Barnett Harris, outstanding player.
We want Jim actually, even though I know how corrupt they are. I think that Gateway has a great team this year, and I do wish them all the luck. But if you've ever been out in Monroeville when they've had a parade, you don't want that because they mess up Route 22.
Yeah.
Terrible. Terrible. It's locked up for hours and hours and hours. You don't want to parade that way. Let it go down like 48 or something like that.
Well, good luck to them anyhow. I hope they do win it, in spite of the bad traffic.
I hope they win it too. They're a very good basketball team this year. Well, Al kind of touched on Sidney Crosby coming back to play with the Penguins on Thursday night against the Rangers. Penguins have been on an amazing run where they've won 9 in a row now.
Yeah.
They have a rough week coming up. They've got the Rangers, New Jersey, and then Philadelphia, all away games. This could be a very strange year for our division. It's possible that the top 4 teams in the division could all get at least 100 points this year.
Wow.
They're all on pace to make it. There are some some of the reasons that might not happen is they have a lot of games against each other now. But the Penguins look as good as ever. Crosby's coming back. Chris Letang, who I think is even a more important key to their success, is skating again and possibly will be back soon. But with Sidney Crosby coming back, Ballsman has to make a lot of decisions. Where do you put him on, for regular play? What do you do with him for the power play? Right now, they're talking about putting him on a line with Matt Cook and Tyler Kennedy. Personally, I think that's a mistake, and they are talking about putting him on the point on the number 1 power play. Personally, I think that's a mistake. Also, I would put Crosby on the second power play, and not necessarily because he doesn't deserve to be on the first line, but the first power play is doing very good. Second power play team, you put Sidney Crosby on there, and the opposing team has to worry about not just 1 power play team, but 2 power play teams, and how do you defend against that? I would put Crosby on a line with Sullivan and Pascal Dupuis. I would move Jordan Stahl onto the line with Matt Cook and Tyler Kennedy. That line has always been successful. Malkin's line is successful, and I believe that the line of Sullivan, Crosby, and Dupuis would also be very successful. If you can roll out 3 lines like that every game, how do you play against them? Like Jim said, we should be lining up right now for the parade. I really don't see any reason to wait. The weather's breaking pretty good. Might as well have the parade next weekend.
Well, you need the cup. You got to have the cup.
Well,
Travels around.
And to speak to Mike's point, the Penguins are 9 games in a row they've won. I mean, the team, just as an entire unit, is playing so well together. Who do you sit? And that would be the interesting dilemma that Dan Bilesma has, because right now, do you mess with something that's working so well? I know Sidney Crosby, when he's on the top of his game, is the best player in the world. Maybe we have player 1 and 1A now, but I don't know. If you could say that Evgeny Malkin takes this second fiddle to anybody at this point.
Well, I think you have to let him play back into shape game-wise. And I think Bosma's plan is pretty sound. I trust the coach. He's done a pretty good job here since he's come to Pittsburgh, whether he had Terrian's players or not. He did inspire them. And he also said he's going to put Sid with guys that we've all talked about. Great athletes have a habit of lifting other players up to that level. Look at Mario Lemieux, just had his statue out there, and I forget the guy, 50 goals, guys would score with him. Stevens scored 50 goals. Just hanging around the net.
Oh, he banged in. Robbie Brown banged in.
There's Robbie Brown, another guy.
What was that? Lemieux banked 49 shots in off his head.
Well, exactly, and this is what I'm hopeful that even Sid acknowledged that the chemistry you have on the team right now, you don't want to screw around with that. Leave the lines like they are. On the power play, they'll tweak it. There's no doubt. You may see Jordan Stahl and Sid together, which would be a great thing, too. It may take a little bit of time. Plus, he only lasted 8 games. I did say that he would come back. I believe he had the best medical attention in the world, and even more so because he looked everywhere. He's in the greatest shape of his life because you see all these pregame practices and morning skates. All you see is how fast and how great he is and all the different drills he's doing. But we have to see how he takes those hits. It'd be nice if they put him in a little bubble, but that's not going to happen. So good luck, Sid. Good luck, Penguins. And you got 9 in a row. It'd be nice to get these next 3.
Are you guys confident that he's here for the long haul? He'll be here throughout the regular season and playoffs?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, once you get one concussion, it's very easy to get another one, or easier at least to get another one. I think that they would not put him back out there if they weren't confident that he's ready to play. Yeah, and it's been a long time. So yeah, I think that they'll be out there. But injuries always happen. Could be to him, could be to anybody else. It might be something other even than a concussion. So there's no way to tell. Okay, he's going to be out there this long. But I think he'll be there. I mean, I think he's ready to play, or he wouldn't be there.
And they say they're only going to play him, 15 minutes?
That's
To-
what they're
to
going to
start.
try.
Well,
But he went crazy right away. After 4 games, he started to lead everybody, the forwards, in minutes. And then the other thing, it's a little humorous, but you have to keep Kunitz off the ice with them because they have a habit of running into each other, and that might have exacerbated his neck injury. Because look how they hit in the middle of the ice there. So if he's not with Kunitz, I'm a little bit happy about that.
And what to speak to Mike's point about the concussion thing, and once you've had a couple of them, it's much easier. This is the thing that concerns me about Chris Letang. He's had 2 concussions in such a short period of time in close proximity, and I'm wondering, is his next hit gonna cause him to be out? I mean, I think we really need him for the playoffs. But these concussion thing, you just don't know.
Chip, there's a thing they come out with. They were doing some of this conversation with doctors and other people, and they said that maybe his other concussion, he wasn't symptom free. So he may not have suffered a concussion. At least this is what the Penguins are starting to put the word out, that maybe it wasn't a concussion. He just still had symptoms from that first one, or the most recent one. So hopefully that's true and it's not another concussion like you're saying, because then he could be done for a while too.
How could you have symptoms without having
Well,
a concussion?
I'm telling you what the teams.
If somebody can explain that to
Well,
me,
think about
I'd be
about
Let's
lower
call
body.
Dr. Kevorkian, and he'll
Right.
let us know.
Think about lower body injuries when they tell you that. You see the guy busted his knee up, but it's a lower body injury. Wait a second, his knee's blown out, ACL and MCL, but they won't say it. Welcome to the NHL. You know that.
No. They're very, very secretive about
Yeah,
their injuries.
that's my point.
You break your hand, if it's above your head, it's an upper body injury.
Yeah.
If it's by your side, it's a lower body injury.
Exactly. Very technical.
Now, as far as like Al, you said put him with Jordan Stahl, maybe on a power play, but putting him out there on a regular shift with Jordan Stahl to me is another mistake. The Penguins' biggest strength is their strength down the middle. Okay, they've got 3 great centers. Actually, they've got a couple other pretty good centers too. Joe Vitale
Yeah.
is doing
Yes,
a
he
great
is.
job, and Richard Park's been reborn basically.
At his age, he's
into
playing great.
to a great hockey player also. And then they have, in my opinion, the best goalie in the world. If you saw the last 2 games,
Yes.
I don't know how
Yes.
you can disagree with that. I wouldn't trade him for Lundqvist and Thomas. I wouldn't trade him for any other 2 goalies in the league. I think he's absolutely the best goalie in the league. I've never seen anything like what he's been doing here recently. And actually, the fact is he has done that most of his career, off and on. Now, this year, he has been totally consistent.
Oh, yes.
He doesn't give up the soft goals nearly as often as he did, and he makes some amazing saves. 30 seconds without his stick, shot after shot after shot. 2 games ago, and he blocked them all. This guy is
when they played the game, they went to a shootout. They went to a shootout. I was like, "Game's over. We're going to win this. There's no question about it. We're going to win this game." And he shut down the first 2 shooters like it wasn't anybody's business. And bing bang boom, we won the game. You just have that feeling that his confidence that if he doesn't want anybody to score against him, he's not going to let him.
It's unfortunate that they don't do the shootout in the playoffs because anytime the Penguins go to the shootout, you have to like their chances. They got not only have the best goalie, they got the shooters for it too.
Oh yeah,
So,
you
have
send
to like
Neil
their-
and Malkin, and then Sid comes back. Can you imagine your first 3 shooters in a shootout? Crosby, Malkin, and Neil, and you could put them in any order you want. And, I'm looking at 3 pucks in the back of the net.
No, it is nice watching, especially how they've matured. Malkin couldn't even shoot it into the goal on a shootout originally. Now he's making spinorama moves. He's putting the puck behind the goaltender. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun. And Neil, once he started adapting to the Pittsburgh water and weather here, he's scoring like crazy. He's a scoring machine. So we're getting the full value out of him. It is a lot of fun, and I can see them winning 12 in a row right now, just the way we're talking here. So,
Well, again, I think that they have. I think they have the best chance to win the Stanley Cup. I don't think there's a lot of teams that are going to be able to beat them in a 7 6-game series. I would love to see them catch up with the Rangers. The Rangers have a pretty soft schedule from here on out.
I was going to ask you about that.
They just played one home game. They now have 6 more home games in a row, and the competition for them is not great in most of those games. But they do have a few, games within the division. They do have 2 more games starting Thursday night against the Penguins. The Penguins have a tougher schedule. They've got half of their remaining games are at home. They play the Rangers twice. They play New Jersey a few times. They play Philadelphia 2 or 3 more times. There's no real easy games for the Penguins, but they are they're just a great team. And with Crosby coming back, they're getting better. And if Letang comes back too, well, it's basically Ballsman's toughest decisions are going to be who to play. The return of Sidney Crosby probably hurts. It hurts Vitale. It hurts Park. They're going to have to shuffle back and forth, on and off the scratch list to make room for Crosby. Guys like Dustin Jeffrey probably won't get nearly as much time to play as they have been. And it's going to cut back on probably even Malkin's performance because his ice time will be cut down a little bit. For Crosby to come back and play 15 minutes or 20 minutes or wherever he eventually turns out to play, that cuts back on other people's ice time. Sounds stupid to say maybe, but do you think there's a possibility that the return of Sidney Crosby could hurt the chemistry on the team?
Well, I think that is a potential factor, and here's one of the things that has me concerned with Sidney coming back with the way Malkin's been playing. Malkin's been playing out of his mind, okay, and he's like the leader. He's the top, and he wants the puck all the time. And I think when he plays with Sidney, in his mind, somewhere in the back of his mind, he's playing second fiddle to him. And at this point in his career, he doesn't need to, and he shouldn't be. And he shouldn't back down at all and still be the kind of leader that he has been while Sidney's been gone. And, I just hope that he continues the way he has been playing instead of, this is Sid's team and I'm just, I'm along for the ride. Because it's every bit as much as Gino's team as it is Sid's right now.
Well, I think the maturity factor comes in here too. Sid's also saying the right things like he always does, that they're not going to affect those lines. And think about it, if you're a coach, wouldn't you want the top players on your team so you can use them as chess pieces instead of having to dig into the minor leagues like Wilkes-Barre and pull up these guys and say, boy, I hope this kid can play in the major leagues. I mean, to me, this is the greatest thing. This is where you find out what a coach is made out of. And also, if you're saying Sid's getting more time, I'm going to assume something here that he's doing well then and that he's scoring points. And that's what we like to see, points on the board. That's how you win these games. So I think all of these things, I'm hesitant about it. We have a great chemistry, but streaks do end. But it's nice to have another guy come in that's going to be in shape and isn't worn out, so these other guys can take a little breather and still play on the lines that they are and keep putting that puck behind the goal there.
Well, I don't really necessarily see an increase in the number of goals the Penguins are scoring. I think what you're going to see is if you look at time of possession, that they're going to be controlling the puck most of the game. And, I know the Red Wings, made their name doing that for a long period of time. And even when we went to the finals 2 years in a row, noticing that the Penguins spent more time with control of the puck. And I think that's one of the things that Crosby will bring is the ability to control the flow of the game, because if you've got control of the puck, then your goaltender doesn't have to worry about stopping it. And when we get into playoff hockey, there are so many 2-1, 3-2 games, 1-0 shutouts. You generally don't see 7 and 8 goal shootouts, in the playoffs, and I don't think that the offense is going to explode like that. But what I think, because Bilesman's system is to keep control of the puck and don't let the other team have it, and they can't score.
Right, but where I differ a little bit on that is they like to keep it in the offensive zone. So even though they're controlling this thing, now I see the teams taking timeouts every so often. And why are they doing that? They're icing the puck. You got our offensive threats coming on who are fresh. So I think we're going to have a couple more goals just because of the wearing down these guys towards the end of the season. And you got these guys that are relentless like our team is. The way they pass the puck, the way they scoot around behind the goaltender. I think we're going to get some more scoring there, Chip. I do have to disagree
Okay.
with you on that. And we'll control the puck.
Point taken.
So,
And Chip also made a great point that there's really no buzz in the city of Pittsburgh that's hosting the NCAA tournaments, and there's even less buzz. People really don't care that Pitt is beginning their spring practice this week as well, the University of Pittsburgh. So, Magic Mike, please get us updated on what's going on with the Pittsburgh Power.
Well, the Pittsburgh Power,
nice move.
you might not recognize the team anymore if you ever did.
What's that update? Come on.
The Pittsburgh Power went to an away game. The players were talking about going on strike, so management fired them all. And apparently planned to do it because they had replacement players already on the way in. The original players were left pretty much on their own. I mean, you're not on the team anymore. You don't come home on the team bus. You don't get on the team airplane. And apparently you don't live in the team housing complex anymore either because, you're no longer part of the team. Personally, again, I thought that was an awesome move. The players are talking about going on strike. When you sign a contract, okay, you sign a contract, everything is laid out for you. You're going to play this amount of games, you're going to get paid this amount of money, and you go, whether it's an NFL contract or whatever Arena Football League contract, or regardless, whatever your job is, when you accept that job, you know what you're going to do, and you know what you're going to be paid, and you know what your benefits are. To go into a job and, like in your first year, decide you're going to go on strike because you want more, well, you should have thought of that before you signed. So the owners of the Pittsburgh Power, I'll take my hat off to you. Well, I don't have a hat, but I take that off to you anyway. And you know what? For every owner of every other business, that's exactly how you should handle your unions. They talk about going on strike, fire them all and replace them. Right? That's the way you
I
deal with that
disagree.
kind of.
America's
Who
not
cares
built
what
on
you
that.
disagree with? You
I do.
communist scumbag.
I do.
It doesn't matter.
I am an
okay?
American
You wanna-
citizen.
You want to cut down?
That's just his opinion,
Well-
and it's not proven in any history. And how do
Well,
you
it's
explain?
proven now.
He talks about coaches.
It's proven
Now,
now. That's
how
what the
do
Power did.
college coaches sign a contract with their eyes open and millions of dollars, tell these kids, I'm going to be there for you my whole career, and they leave? So how can you tell me a contract means anything? That's so much it's odd. And then you're talking about unions
Well,
here.
wait a minute.
Unions are only 7% of the working people in the country. Explain to me how a tail wags a dog. And for you people that don't understand tails and dogs, 93% of the working people are non-union. That's the dog. The 7% tail, and this is a hot subject, are getting all the blame. Now explain to me, when you're a genius, how that makes any sense. I got to hear this.
Well, first off, just like as always, what you said had absolutely nothing to do with what the rest of us are talking about. Okay,
Why'd you bring up businesses and unions?
When you talk about college football coaches and students, which unions do they belong to?
They do.
They don't. What union? What was there a college coaches union?
There might be a teachers union.
No, there might be a teachers union, but there's no college coaches union. So what they have, they go individual contracts, and you know what? You're right. They should be made to fulfill their contracts,
Thank
just
you
like
for the
everybody
compliment.
else. Okay, just like everybody else is. And you're right. Again, there's only 7% of the working population belongs to unions. That's why we still have a country. Because if they all belong to unions, we'd be communists just like you and the rest of these liberals.
I am not a communist,
You know.
but this guy was overseas, and I think something happened to him because we're all Americans. And just because I disagree, to call me a communist, that's so offensive. I took an oath in my union that I would not agree to be a communist. It's even in the oath of a lot of unions because Reds like yourself thought anybody that's a union member is a communist. They weeded that out years ago.
That's absolutely true. Regardless, the
They made
Penguins,
that up.
the
That's
Penguins are
Wasn't
still
that a
This
great
will be in our
Penguin game on
political
Sunday?
show. We'll start that next week.
Wasn't that a great Penguin game on Sunday? We beat the Bruins 5-3.
You know why we beat the Bruins?
Because of the
Because we
Union
got
players.
extremely physical
The Union
and
players.
pounded the Bruins,
Yes.
especially Zdeno Chara, who's 6 foot, almost 7 foot tall, and the Penguins pounded him every time he got near the puck, and they basically beat him into submission by the end of the game.
And
he
that's the
was
second
dragging.
time that they played Boston and beat them handily. They beat them up in Boston 2-1 about a month or so ago. And, Boston's the defending champs, and, we've been sticking it to them. I think we can continue to stick it to whoever we
Rangers,
face.
Well,
New
that's
Jersey, Philadelphia. There's 3 right there, fellas.
That's why the Penguins will win the Stanley Cup, because regardless of what what any other team plays, the Penguins can play their game with them and beat them. Okay, they'll be defensive against the Rangers. They'll shut them out again, possibly, like they did the last time. The Rangers' whole game is defense. Again, New Jersey Devils, their whole game is defense, with the exception of what's his name, Consta, whatever his name is. The Penguins will shut him down, and they can be defensive with them too. With the Penguins, they have, especially with Crosby coming back, they have 3 scoring lines that they can throw at you. Plus, they play defense. Every one of them plays defense. Malkin doesn't get enough credit for it, but he's a great defensive player. James Neal's a great defensive player. Jordan Staal might be the best defensive forward in the league. So they can play defense with anybody. They can skate with anybody. There's nobody that wants to go up and down the ice with them. That'll be a 6-goal game for sure. And Philadelphia, we just beat them up because
They're
that's the way they
Philadelphia.
play.
And as we come down to the last 12 minutes of the show, where do you guys think that Peyton Manning is going to play next year?
Arizona, my friend.
It's up in the air right now. I know Arizona is being considered. I know he visited with Denver this weekend. I have a feeling that he's going to lean towards Miami. I know the owner of the Tennessee Titans is willing to sell his soul to the devil to get him, and who knows? He ponies up enough money. Peyton played his college ball in Tennessee. He may end up there, but it'll be interesting to see, because each one of these teams has got something to offer, and he would be the key piece provided he's able to play, and that has yet to be seen. But I'd like to bring up another point. Last week I kind of gave a little bit of props to Tiger Woods because he shot a 62 in the final round of the tournament. And this week they played the Blue Monster, which is one of the best courses in the country. And Tiger was conspicuous by his absence at the end of the tournament, and I just found it very interesting that he's shooting 3 over on Sunday, and after the 11th hole, he swings the club and he says, "Okay, I'm done. I've got an injury." Now, if he would have been playing 3 under, would that same injury have kept him from playing? Because I remember several years ago, Tiger Woods played the U.S. Open on basically one leg and won, and afterwards had to have surgery. So how could you be able to play championship golf with a torn ACL, MCL, whatever it was he had, and you felt tightness in your Achilles tendon?
I have your answer,
I just
Chip.
find it very interesting that when he's playing poorly, he can find a way to opt out of the tournament, and
Here's what
at his
happened.
convenience.
Maybe, first off, you said several years ago. Several years is a long time for an athlete. Okay, those injuries don't heal quite as
Right.
fast as they do as they did before. But maybe instead of what you're talking about, well, he opted out because he was 3 over and said he had an injury. Maybe the reason he was 3 over was the injury, and realizing, hey, I can't play through this anymore or play effectively through this anymore. It might be time to get out.
And
I like Tiger Woods.
You, Mike, you could be right, and I just, I find it ironic that whenever he opts out of a tournament.
I'm going to add something else ironic for you, Chip.
Well, it could be cause and effect, but
Chip, here's the other irony. Balco was shut down. Okay? So that makes a difference. It ties into what Mike's talking about. You're 3 years older. You can't bounce back. Everybody knows that. I know plenty of players that have played sports, and Achilles injuries, it's like stretching a rubber band. The scout here will tell you that. Once you get prone to that, it's hard to bring that thing back. Sometimes you have to snap and get surgery.
Is it similar to like football quarterbacks that throw a few interceptions and decide to limp off the field?
No, this is legit. That's just psychological, and they get a twisted
And how
knee
many
or
golfers have Achilles injuries? I mean, like what part of the game, like, does that help them though when they cut or when they're trying to accelerate?
Now we're gonna have
I mean,
to get
they're
into
standing
mechanics.
still
I'm
swinging a
not-
golf club.
The way you swing a golf club and the way they swing.
I played golf, and I understand, but maybe I'm just a bit of a cynic.
Chip,
Professional
you're a cynic.
athletes have made me that way because we always hear something new every day about these athletes that just make you shake your head and say oh well.
Well, in the interest of continuity, maybe we get back to what Jim asked about Peyton Manning. Personally, I don't know. If I'm Peyton Manning, I got to be looking at Denver. They've got a pretty good organization there. They went to the playoffs without actually depending on their quarterback to play that big a part in it. Their defense, their running game, all helped out. I like Tim Tebow. I'd hate to see him have to sit down for a couple years, but if I'm Peyton Manning, I think that's the team that I'd be looking at.
And wouldn't you want to throw to Fitzgerald? Wouldn't that be nice to be able to throw to him?
Well, each of those teams has a stud receiver. You got Brandon Marshall in Miami. You've got Kenny Britt in Tennessee. But, I don't know. Maybe this is just me, but I don't really see Manning as being a good fit for Denver. I think that it would just completely muddle that team right now. I think they're a better team. They'll be a better team without Manning than they would with, if I could go out on a limb and say that.
You just
And Brandon Marshall just got traded right before this show to the Chicago Bears. So,
right with his old friend Cutler up there.
Yeah,
He used to save him all the time.
That's right.
Remember, he'd throw the ball all over the place, and all of a sudden Marshall would come out and catch the ball. So I'll stick with Arizona for Peyton here, if he can play.
And a lot of people don't know Brandon Marshall's actually from Homewood, Pennsylvania, before he moved down to in junior high school to Florida. His dad was probably the greatest City League quarterback, maybe even better than Major Harris. Fred Marshall was an unbelievable player for Westinghouse back when he was winning championships.
Bold statement. Major Harris is pretty good here.
Yeah.
Back in the big house days.
Well, I'll tell you, also, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but Randy Moss signed with San Francisco 49ers.
Wow.
I think Randy Moss was always the best wide receiver, like short of Rice, but
When he chose to play.
I think well, you know what, he's successful, and he holds some pretty heavy records
Yeah,
there.
he does.
I think he'll be a good addition to San Francisco. That signing may help the Steelers keep Mike Wallace, because I'm sure San Francisco is taking a hard look at him too. The relationship between Harbaugh and Moss might be a lot of fun to watch. I wish I was going to be a fly on the wall for some of those meetings. But I think Randy Moss, at least I always thought he's a good receiver, and I think he'll be a good addition out there. San Francisco may be able to put them over the top.
And I think Randy Moss needs a coach like Jim Harbaugh. You remember with Bill Belichick, Randy Moss was, had some of his best seasons with the New England Patriots. So I think that Randy Moss is going to do very well with San Francisco. It's going to open up the field they like to throw to their great tight end down the seam. So the question is now, are they convinced that Alex Smith is the quarterback of the future?
I think they are. Didn't they just sign him to a 3-year contract or something? So I think they're committed. So now they need a few more tools for him to use. So they did commit.
They didn't really rely a lot on Alex Smith last year. They had him manage the game. The defense kept the game close, and basically they were asking Alex Smith to not blow the game. Don't make the big turnover or whatever. And it'll be interesting to see if they're going to try to open up the offense with Moss, if Alex Smith can bring that kind of a game to the field.
And that's a great point that you make, Chip, and it brings me to another point is Alex Smith, don't forget, was the first player taken overall in the draft. The Rams just made a trade with the Washington Redskins for a guy who's going to be the second overall player in the draft, RG3. I think they gave up way too much, 3 first-round draft choices and a second-round draft choice for a guy who, are we convinced 100% that he's the next great one, the next Peyton Manning, the next
Brett Favre,
the next Ben Roethlisberger, or will he be another Alex Smith? That's a heavy price to pay for a guy that's not the first overall pick, but the second overall pick. What do you think?
Well, go ahead. I think Daniel Snyder has got an eye for talent. You know, he made that big signing with Albert Hainsworth. threw $100 million in there.
That got him in a little trouble there too.
He has a history of overpaying for people and over evaluating talent. You know, I hope it works out for him, but I just think this is going to be another in his, you know, in his circus act.
I ain't know if Snyder or Marion Barry made that pick, man.
But why would he stop now? Why would he stop doing this now? Look at Randall made a lifetime retirement deal going to Washington.
He got $20 million.
So, I mean, here's a guy notorious for overpaying, overestimating, and who knows, RG3 might come through, but he doesn't have to. He'll be set for life.
The bigger problem for Washington Redskins is, okay, the amount of money that they're going to be docked against the salary cap this year because they overpaid in the non-cap year. But that, you know, that I find interesting as well, because if there was no cap, how could you have spent more money than you should have?
Well, that's where the deal makes sense, because they are so far over the cap this year that they're not going to be able to sign any number 1 draft picks for the next 3 years anyway, so there's no sense having them.
Well, I know one guy that made out big time is Shanahan, because if RG3 comes in and he plays great like a Terrell Pryor or something like that, or Michael Vick or Peyton Manning, then Shanahan is fine. But if he plays so poorly that in 2014 they're picking 1, 2nd, or 3rd in the draft, Shanahan's fired anyhow. So, you know, it was a good move.
Well,
for
you know,
Shanahan.
I mean, Shanahan, when he made his name as the head coach of Denver, I mean, he took over a Denver team that, you know, Dan Reeves had spoon-fed John Elway and turned him into a professional quarterback. Now, it's actually going to be interesting to see if Shanahan can develop a talent and turn him into an NFL quarterback and make him into a star.
I can already say no, because Shanahan, don't forget, went to Oakland Raiders before he went to Denver, and Oakland fired him within 2 seasons, and he's never had any success once Elway left, other than Shanahan writing a pretty successful motivational book. He hasn't been successful as a coach. Neither is his son.
All right, guys, we got a minute left. Jim, can the Steelers keep Wallace?
They better.
There you have it. Better keep Wallace.
Smoking Jim.
Well, you know what?
The scouting report comes right.
You know, the Steelers are going to doing everything they can to sign Wallace, but they've got 2 other guys they didn't even tender offers to, Legursky and Ramon Foster, which, you know, but I mean, they have less offensive linemen now than they had, you know, a week ago, and I'm not sure if they had any offensive linemen then.
I think they still have the same amount of offensive
so maybe that's what they're going to do with the entire draft this year, is just draft an entire offensive line.
They're just going to pick them up. They're not going to
Cordy Glenn. Well, guys, thanks a lot. This has been a good show. We'll see you next week, Pittsburgh Sportsline. Enjoy the tournament. Watch the Penguins. They're going to be a lot of fun this week.